Well, are we rolling?
We've been rolling.
Okay.
Okay, this one's about some things you guys wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to talk about last time, so
Go ahead.
go with your list, Mom, and we'll throw some questions in along the way.
Okay. Well, I guess we're going to try to finish up what we started a few weeks ago, hopefully. Talk about some things whenever I was growing up, when I was little. And I talked about the little town I was born in, Grover, North Carolina. It's like a little farming town, and they raised a lot of cotton. And then I was thinking about the time when I started this school. The school that we had was a two-story brick school, and I think maybe there might not have been over 500 or 600 children, even if there was that many. And I started this school when I was 4 years old. I was 4 years old in October, and school started in September, so they let me go ahead and start the school. So I went to that school until maybe about the fourth or fifth grade, and then we moved away. But some of the things that we had that went on, we had outside toilets. The boys had one and the girls had one, sitting kind of in the edge of the woods behind the schoolhouse. And with the games that we played, we played jump plank. And some of the girls would bring their jump ropes to school, and we'd jump rope.
Whoa, 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 what's jump plank?
Jump plank is where they lay a long plank across a log. And it's stationed there, you know, it's stationed. And then somebody get on one end of it, and you jump on the other end and send them up in the air, flying. It's a wonder we hadn't broke a bone or broke our arm or leg or whatever, but we did that. That was it for recess time, and for lunchtime, that's what we girls would get out there and do. And jump rope, some of the girls would bring a long jump rope to school, and we would jump rope. Play marbles, play hopscotch. We'd always, you know, draw out our little lines for hopscotch and play that. And I'd play marbles with my brothers in that. Of course, I don't know if I always won or not, but we'd get down on the ground and play. We'd draw a circle on the ground. And the little town that we lived in, it had it wasn't paved. We had no paved roads. It was dirt roads and dirt sidewalks. It's all dirt. And one little row of stores in the main part of town, and at the end of that, at them buildings, there was a post office. We had a post office, and we had a depot there because the train tracks went right through the middle of town. And at the end of the post office, we had a gas station. Behind the gas station, there was a little blacksmith shop. I remember seeing that as I passed by. Then across the railroad tracks was another gas station, and my uncle run that one. He had that one for a long time. And he always carried his .44 pistol with him because he walked to work, and he just lived across the tracks. So he walked to work, carried that pistol. And then beside of that station was a cotton gin. And that's where the farmers brought their cotton in to have the seed taken out. And I thought I would try my hand at raising a little bit of cotton. So, there.
Get your cotton.
So, just to see what it was like, and because I used to pick it, and it was such a, you know, hard work then, but now it's kind of a thrill to even just to see if I could raise a few stalks of cotton. So I did, and I raised this so the grandchildren and great-grandchildren could see how it was grown, and, you know, to raise something that you can eat, and something that's just soft and fluffy. And it's used all over the world to make thread and to make cloth They make tablecloths, napkins, upholstery material, and of course, you know, lots of clothes that's made out of cotton.
Hold one out.
So I thought it was just
Can you hold one out?
I thought it was just a thrill to see if I could do it, because here in Illinois there's a lot of people that has never seen any cotton grow, and I thought my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, you know, could see what it was like, and the work that I used to do when I was a little girl, going out into the field and picking this cotton. It was hard work, but anyway, I was thrilled that it worked out like it did. So I have two plastic containers filled with cotton for people to see, and it's just a kind of a show and tell thing. But
what was a day of cotton picking like?
what was the day?
Yeah. What was the day? What would the day be like picking cotton out in the field?
You went out into the field when the sun was up real good. And then
you had to wait till the dew got off of the cotton before you could go in, because it'd be wet, yeah.
some of the times in the summertime there'd be a big dew, but sometimes there wouldn't. It would be okay. And then we'd pick till maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Did you get a lunch break?
Mom would take a can of pork and beans to the field, or some biscuits and just little snacks like for us to eat on at break time.
What kind of snacks?
We had no water bottles or nothing like that to keep cold water, so we just had to take whatever we had to take some water in. But it was okay with us because we didn't know any better, so didn't know any different. So we just picked our cotton, had our little lunch break, and back to picking cotton. And then when we got our little sack full, we had a tow sack that we strapped on our shoulder. We get it full, and then we take it out into the cotton field that have a big, like a tow sack sheet, a big sheet. And that's where we would dump our cotton. Then when we got our sheet filled, the farmers would come out in the field and weigh our cotton. They'd weigh the sheet, they'd tie it up in a knot. They had the scales that they had between their shoulders with the big ball on the end of it that they moved over to see how much our cotton weighed. And they had a big hook that they hooked under that knot in the sheet, and then they could tell how much cotton we had picked all day. And believe me, it wasn't a whole lot, but it was enough. We made a few dollars a day out of it. And then
so all day for a few dollars a day,
all day. Well, they was paying $1 for 100 pounds, and it took me about all day to pick 90 pounds. Because I was only like maybe 12 or 13 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, of course I couldn't pick a lot. And then the cotton gin that we had there, it was right in town, right across the railroad tracks, and the farmers would bring their cotton in and gin their cotton. That's to take the seed out. And they use these seed for feed, for cattle. They probably mix stuff with it and use that for cattle too. They ate that. And I remember we had a cornmeal building there that would grind your corn up into cornmeal. I remember taking little bags of corn out there for this guy to run it through his mill, grind up enough cornmeal for Mama to make a few cakes of cornbread. We moved around a lot when I was smaller. Then we moved up to Kings Mountain. That was about 5 or 6 miles from Grover. And
Okay, so how much would $1 buy back then? What could you buy with $1's worth of cotton?
well, a dollar would buy quite a little bit, and you can get like a loaf of bread for 10 cents, and cheese was real cheap, meat was real cheap. Of course, we didn't eat a lot of meat. We eat a lot of beans and cornbread and biscuit bread and stuff like that.
What's biscuit bread?
A biscuit.
Homemade biscuits.
Biscuits.
Okay. All right, biscuits, okay.
And then after we moved, we moved to Kings Mountain when I was about maybe 12 years old, I guess, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom washing her clothes outside in a wash pot.
Yeah, we've done that too.
big old black wash pot with
Yeah,
a fire under
3
it.
legs on it.
And she'd wash
I
her
remember
clothes
that
on
well.
on a rub board and then put them in that pot to boil them. Had a
Yeah.
long stick that she stirred the pot with, you know, and boiled them. And then she would rinse them in 2 wash tubs, tin tubs, and then hang them on the line to dry. We had no washer and dryer. We had no refrigerator. All we had was a wooden ice box. And we'd have to put our little card out for the iceman to come
and the
on.
card had the top 25, 50, 75, and 100 written on it. Whatever ice you wanted, you turned that part up to the top so the iceman would know what to bring into your house.
Of course, we had an ice house there in Kings Mountain
Oh, yeah.
where they made ice. They made it. And
Yeah,
then
I watched them make it many times.
the drivers would bring around in a truck, in their truck, and they would have their ice pick. They'd pick off as much ice as you wanted. If you wanted 25 pound or 50 pound, well, our little ice box wouldn't hold, 75 or 100 pound. You'd usually have to get 25 or 50 pound. And it didn't last, but just, a few days. It didn't last a week or nothing like that. So, so we had a little rough time of growing up like that, but
Yeah.
I guess we enjoyed it though while we was little because we
Yeah, where
didn't know any better. So
where Sandra picked you up off of the bed, that's where we had the ice box at our house. And on the back porch, we would,
that was a metal ice box that we had
Yeah,
there.
but,
Got it from a friend.
yeah, but we still had to put out some of them, if I remember right, some of them they pulled by horse. The ice wagon that would come around, it was insulated and everything. But they would bring it around, that's how we'd get our ice. And I remember that the old iceman that would come around there, we couldn't figure out what was wrong. You'd hiccup a lot or you'd sleep a lot, And he laughed at us, me and your mother, said, don't worry about that. Said, when that's happening, that means they're growing.
From the kids were laughing.
Yeah.
But we kids would run along behind the ice truck, and when he chipped off the ice pieces, would fly, and we picked them up and eat them.
Yeah. He had a chunk of ice, yeah. Of course, he didn't mind. It was something he wasn't going to pick up anyway.
Well,
Yeah, and
I guess all the kids did that.
she was talking about going to school there. When I was going to school, I went to a place called Joliet West School. That's where I started. And
Joliet West?
huh?
Joliet West?
Not Joliet, Gordon.
Oh, no. Kings Mountain
Mountain.
West.
Kings Mountain West, okay.
Joliet. I guess that's why I'm living here now, yeah. I was trying to tell the lady the other day here about getting her mail on the porch, and I was telling her that it was at 405. I said, no, that ain't where I live. I said, I've had so many 405s in my liver. The numbers so across the years, I'm calling them over now. I said it's 409, but anyway, no, we used to go to the West School there. That's where I started. Started in the first grade there, and I went through that. They went through the 6th grade there.
What was the school like? What was the school like? The building in that, was it like the one Mom went to?
No, it was a regular brick school building there. No, it was not wood. It was more or
It
less
was a little
kind of
bit
like
more modern than the one I went to.
Hold on,
to school, and I
let's
went
start back up.
Well, I guess that was the only elementary school that I went to. Of course, I didn't go to high school. I had to go to work because you either worked or you didn't have nothing.
What'd you do? What work?
Huh?
What work?
At the cotton mill. Well, we'd unload bales of cotton off of cars and put them in the warehouse, and then take them from the warehouse up to what we call the opening room for the cotton mill to start it. through there, we would put them on what we call a two-wheeler.
You told him before that.
Did I tell you this before?
Well, we talked about it a little bit. You said you went to work when you finished grade school. Is that where you what you started doing then?
Yeah, I was about
Okay.
13 years old.
Okay.
So what grade did you finish then?
Oh, I took some schooling at home after that. I really don't know what year I would have actually passed to go to if I'd been going to school. But I took it because a lady would come to the village, to one of the houses out there, and would take some classes when we had a chance from work or stuff, you know. But I had to go to work and work here in the hot cotton mill and work for Mr. W.K. Mooney there. But in this school, we had a fence they had a fence around the school about the size of the fence here beside of the house, that 6 foot or 8 foot fence they got out there. And we'd get out there and had our ball diamond right there when we played recess and all that, you know. I remember one time right over that fence, like about 25 or 30 feet, there was started to houses. I remember one time I hit the ball, it was a foul ball, and went right up over that fence through the man's window. I was just a young kid and we had nothing, but it scared me. It really scared me then, because I didn't know what would happen. And they never did do anything to me about it or nothing, you know, because we had our ball field there and we was playing ball. It was legal. But I had to walk home, which was about 1.5 miles for lunch and everything from school. During lunchtime I had to go, if we got any lunch or had anything, I had to walk home, which would have been a good 1.5 miles one way.
Well, we walked to school too. It was probably a couple miles that we had to walk to and from school. But sometimes we'd be coming from school and there'd be a wagon going along the dirt road, and kids would run and jump up on the back of that wagon and ride a little ways to school.
Yeah, well, see, if I hadn't been able to walk home and get a quick bite of lunch or something, I wouldn't have had nothing, because we didn't have no sack lunches then.
Well, we did.
We didn't have nothing to make a sack lunch out of.
We did. Mom made us a sack lunch every morning, and it may be a biscuit and a piece of fat back, and she'd make sticky, what we call sticky buns. She'd make them, and they were so good. And she'd put 1 or 2 of them in our lunch, but by the time we got to school, that was gone. We eat that all the way
Okay,
to
2
school.
things now. What is fatback?
Salt pork.
That's salt pork, they
That's
call
what they call
it out
salt
here.
pork here.
Okay. And what is a sticky
explain
bun?
Well, that's made out of red dough, you know, and she would make them and put maybe a few little nuts and some syrup and sugar, butter
Okay.
stuff on them. Then when they melted, it was kind of sticky, you know. Like.
Okay.
So she'd pack them, but we usually eat them before we got to school. When lunchtime came, we didn't have nothing much for lunch, because they had no lunch programs or nothing like that in school, man. They didn't know what that was. But
I remember this one lady, her family, Jim and Helen, well, let's see, I can't remember their last name right now.
that's not important.
Anyway, I never had banana pudding at that time. I didn't even know what it was like. But she'd make some of the banana puddings, you know, with the graham crackers, with the vanilla wafers
Oh yeah.
and bananas and vanilla wafers and bananas.
Made their own filling. My mom made a lot of them, and potato pudding too. I'd have to get up on Sunday morning a lot of times and grate the sweet potatoes for her to make a sweet potato pudding. So she done a lot of.
I never did have to do that on any time to make the pudding. This lady had made some of it, and I went with her 2 boys. She had 2 boys and 1 daughter, and Charles was one of the boys' names. Jim was their dad's name, and her name was Helen, but I can't think of the boy's name. But anyway, that's when I'd get my banana pudding. I'd go over to their house, and she'd have one made, you know, and she'd always give us some of it. And I thought that was really something, you know, to get a little bit of banana pudding like that.
That's great stuff.
I remember catching cats when I was a kid. We had, I've seen some on TV that looked like them, but you couldn't find them kind of cats just anywhere. They was like a house cat, but they grew under the plant, under the mill up there. They was like
Feral cats. It was feral cats.
And they had different, they had this special places of black on them and gray on them and black and gray around, you know. And I'd get one of those cats, finally get a hold of one of them, you know. But I'd be crawling all under that mill trying to get a hold of one of them cats, you know. And we
It's
just,
probably kittens then. They're probably just kittens then.
well, yeah.
Growing up.
And they were wild. I mean, if you turned them loose at your house, they went back to the mill, stayed under the mill, yeah. No, we had a lot of things that was different then than what they are today.
Well, we moved around quite a bit, like I said, and that time Mom and Dad had 5 children. I remember once that we moved kind of down in the country, like a little country, and down below us was a farmer, and he raised sugar cane, and he had this mill down there that he got the juice out of his cane, and he had a horse or a mule or whatever it was hooked up to a tongue that walked around and around that little mill like a wagon wheel and squeezed the juice out of that. Then he had these big vats that he cooked that syrup, and he cooked it and skimmed it and cooked it and skimmed it until he got it cooked down to where then it was called molasses.
Yeah.
It wasn't just syrup, it was molasses. But yeah, I remember that. That was fun when I was a little girl to watch that.
Yeah, I did that, what she's talking about. At the Lassie Mill, we call it, the syrup would come out of the cane, and then put the stalks in there, and the horse would go around, and that would press the juice out of it.
Press the juice out.
And it would put the juice, like, would go into this vat where they was cooking it, and the skimmings, they had like a trough built from that down to a little creek that run by there, the last one I worked at. And when
Okay, Pop, you're talking about.
yeah, there's.
It was down at the molasses mill.
At the molasses mill, and there's turning the crank with the horse was going around at the pole, and he was mashing the juice out of the cane, and it was running into a certain container there, and then they would had the fire under that where the juice was at, and it would, like she said, it would cook.
Big pans, big vats, like like a big pan that had all this juice in it, and then they would just cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it down.
What?
But then, you know, the foam would.
Yeah, the foam was what they call the skimmings.
Yeah, they'd have to keep
and it would go in
out.
this trough down to built like a regular trough where it would go into this vat, about a 4x8 bed, like about 8 deep and about 4x8 feet.
But that was good molasses, good molasses.
And,
We'd
what
have
they
that
would-
for breakfast with biscuits and butter and
Yeah,
molasses.
they would
and took the place
run
of
that,
jelly.
and what they would do with it, it would run over and run into the creek. And that's when the fish that was in them little creeks, they just loved that. You know, they'd eat, I guess, I don't know how much of it they could eat, but they would they would love that skimmings over the molasses that we put down there for them, you know. And it would take you, that was an all-day chore when you started on that. I mean, like from morning till night, because it would take that long to actually get all the juice out of whatever cane, and you didn't cut the cane till you was ready to put it in the mill. Because if you did, the sap would run, juice would run out of
Well,
it.
they had a tumbler in the center of this wheel, like a tumbler in the center, and they put the cane down in that tumbler. And then as the horse went around, it was just squeezing that juice out into a container.
Yeah.
That was hard work, but it was good.
Yeah, we did a lot of hard work
Eating,
then.
yeah.
To get our cold water, we had to draw it out of wells. Like if we wanted, like she said, we didn't have ice box, we didn't have refrigerators. We had an ice box, but if you didn't have no ice and you wanted a good, fresh, cold drink, the company plant that where we worked at, where she lived and I lived, about every 2 or 3 houses, in between them they'd have like a well house. They'd have a well dug, and you'd go there and fill up, draw up your big buckets of water, and walk back home with your buckets of cold water, which would be a house or 2 away.
You didn't have
Right.
indoor plumbing?
No, a lot of places we lived, we had no electricity. We didn't have any electricity. We had outside plumbing. We had no electricity.
Outside plumbing? You mean
Yeah.
outhouses?
Outhouses. We had outhouses, and then, and our light was an Aladdin lamp. My mom had that was one that had the little soft, pocket light that lit. It was bright. It was real bright. And we had one of those. Plus
Like a
we
Coleman lantern today.
have kerosene lamps. We had those. And that's the light that we had. And of course my mom had to cook on a wood stove. She had a wood stove in the kitchen, a big old wood
And
stove with a...
She used to talk, she was talking a while ago about doing the laundry in the wash pots outside. When I got old enough, which I don't know, I was pretty young, 12 or 13 years old, I started helping kill the hogs. And I'll tell you this thing that happened though, this wasn't part of killing the hogs. This was something, my dad was still living, he died when I was 9. But anyway, him and some of the old timers would go out and catch turtles and bring them in, and they would dress them there at the back porch, which was about as high as this. And they just walk up to that and lay the turtle down there and dress it. And somehow they'd get his head out and they'd cut his neck off way back here as far as they could. And a lot of times when they'd cut it would affect the nerves some way in there. When they would cut the head off, the mouth would fly open. And they warned us and warned us and warned us to stay away from it. And I was a hard head then too. Anyway, I could just barely get under that floor where they threw the turtle's head. I was under there and that thing had its mouth wide open. And somehow or another I got my finger close enough and that thing grabbed my finger. Just the mouth and the neck, that's all it was of it. Boy, I come out of that house, I was really yelling. Dad, take screwdrivers and get that head off of my finger. That turtle was nothing but the head and the neck, that's all there was to it. It still bit me.
Is that what happened to your fingernail?
No,
No, that was done when I was crawling.
somebody,
I
my
was just
sister
a crawl.
stepped on it.
Oh.
It's like a double nail that grows in there.
Holy Whiteside, his mother stepped on that when I was just crawling. And I've got 2 nails
It's
there
a
yet.
double one,
Yeah,
double nail.
there's 2 nails there yet. But I got in that, and we used to butcher, and what we used those wash pots for out there, we'd clean them out real good, they'd be clean. We'd take the scrap hog and put them in that pot, and they cook our meat in there, and they call it cracklings.
They rendered the
Lard out of the
skin
fat.
and stuff, in these pots.
We took
This-
all of the fat out of the meat there.
This wash pot reminds you of a witch's pot. You know, the pictures of a witch's pot had 3 little legs on it, and they'd put it up on a brick, or put these legs up on a brick to raise it up, where they could get the wood up under the pot, and then
It's like
that
a big
way.
cauldron.
Huh?
It's like a cauldron.
Well, they use what we call stove wood. They'll cut in length, just short lengths, you know, to fit into a stove. And then they would just put that under there, and sometimes she'd have a piece of pine wood that she would put under there to start the fire. Because, you know,
Yeah.
back there, in the woods, you could go and chop a little stump of pine, you know, pine tree or something that had fallen or died a long time ago. Then that little stump was pine, and you strike a match to it and it would flame up just like it was gasoline or something. And a lot of times she used that to start her fires with. Of course, we always
I know I
had
had to
matches,
start
you
the
know.
fires in our little, what we call a pot-bellied stove in the house there in the morning. That was one of my jobs. I had to get out of the bed and didn't have long pajamas or nothing, you know. And I'd run into the
We
room.
didn't know what pajamas
I'd run
was.
into the room where the pot-bellied stove was at, and it would be sitting out like from here to the wall, from where the chimney went up. You'd have the stovepipe, big round stovepipe about this big around, run to it. I'd build a fire in that, and I'd always hunt me some of that pine kindling, little slivers of pine wood, because that would burn so good, and it'd start the rest of it up real good if you get that going.
And the way they had their wood stoves in that we had to heat with, like if they had a fireplace, they'd always have to have a fireplace light, and they'd put a piece of tin over that, cover that fireplace with tin, and make a real round hole for the stovepipe to go into. And then that way we had a chimney, you know, for the smoke
And the
things to
draft.
go out.
Draft thing was on the pipe between the stove and the wall, or wherever it went up the chimney, that drafter, you know, that you adjusted that to however you wanted it.
And that's the way we did our ironing, because we had no electricity in most of the places that we lived in. And our little stove was a small stove that, you know, not as big as some of them were, but it was a small stove, about like the heater. It was round, and had little racks on it around, and we put our smoothing irons, set it up on them little racks in there, and set it against the stove to let them heat. And that's how we did our ironing, with them
Yeah.
smoothing irons, they call them, smoothing irons. And sometimes they'd be pretty hot when you took them off of there.
Yeah, you had
always
to watch.
have a thick rag or something in your hand to catch hold of the handle of them, you know, when you was going to go ironing.
Yeah, you'd have to do that.
My mom's ironed my daddy's white shirts many a time. She'd starch them and use them old smoothing irons
Yeah.
to
Well, that's all the
iron
irons you had. You didn't have the electric car.
But she always did a good job, and she always
Yeah.
kept us with
Mine-
clean clothes and everything
Yeah.
when we was little and growing up. She had a hard time doing it, but you know, she didn't know any different because she had
No, none of
no
us knew any
electric
different.
irons and electric ice boxes and things like that. She didn't have any either when she was growing up, so you know, she didn't know any different. That was their lifestyle.
Did she ever talk about what it was like when she grew up?
No.
No,
No,
mine
I
either.
never heard her talking. Well, you know, not in detail or nothing. She might have mentioned about, you know, working out in the fields, and well, in fact, I remember her saying one time when my brother Crawley was 7 days old, she went out in the field and dropped corn to be planted, and he was just 7 days old. So, you know, they had a rough time growing up too, she did, because her parents were farmers, Daddy's parents was farmers, and they had a hard time growing up. But like I said, they didn't know any different. That's all they knew
No,
was
that's
hard
all we
work.
knew. That's all we had, so
Just
that's all
hard
we
work.
knew.
So I guess that's a little bit of things that happened when I was little and growing up.
Yeah.
Not very exciting, some of them, but
No, it ain't. but
Somehow we
it-
made it, but I think it makes you appreciate more now the things that you
The
do
electric
have.
lights and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You have to learn to
inside
appreciate
plumbing,
them.
electric and electric irons and things like that. I think that you really appreciate, you know, things now, because when you look back and see how hard it was, at the time we didn't know it was all that hard, but now when you look back and see all the conveniences that we have today compared to what we had growing up, well, it makes you not want to live back there anymore. I go back there to visit a lot of times, but I don't want to live back there anymore. So I enjoy a few conveniences today that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't have anything either. We were in the same boat she was in. And there's
Well, nobody had
there's
nothing
millions
much.
of people.
you
But
know.
my dad was the type of person that it was during the days of the first big depression, the depression that we had. And I can remember very well the fact that there'd be a lot of people, they'd travel the railroads with the trains, you know, the hobos, the trains they call them. And there'd be, some of them would get off and come down through the village. And they'd all be looking for 5 or 10 minutes of work, wanting to chop wood or something for some food or something, you know. But he never turned anybody away. No matter what we had, he made sure that if there was somebody there like that, they would have part of what we had, because that was his gift. That was what he did.
Well, Mom had done fed a lot of hobos too, like they would call them hobos, because they would swing these trains, and that's how they travel. You know, they'd get on these trains, and with the box cars, get in one of them and travel, and they'd, every once in a while they'd get off in a little town and they'd be hungry, they'd want something to eat. So
Yeah.
Mom has fixed them food too, fed them, let them eat.
Yeah, I don't ever remember us getting anybody that caused us any trouble.
But you know, everybody, well, there was a few wealthy people, but as for the most of us, we didn't have a lot of money, and the people mostly didn't.
Okay, how did you slaughter a hog?
Well, the way we did it was the people that we were going to kill the hogs for would have the water hot in a big, like a 50-gallon drum or something like that there. They'd have a lot of hot water. And we'd go to their house. It was my job to shoot them. And you had to hit them right in between the eyes, right in there. And 9 out of 10, you could do it okay. And quick as they would fall over, it was my job to go into the pen where they was laying, kicking away, you know. Boy, them legs was, they was fierce too. But I would grab the front legs and turn them up on their back. And my buddy, Tom Roberts, he had a knife and he would cut them right along here, and then he would go into the vein artery with that knife and start them to bleeding, and then we'd let them lay there till they got through bleeding. But anyway, then we would drag them out to the place where they had the hot water for us.
Did you have a hoist or something to hoist up their back legs and hoist them
No,
up?
yeah, right here, 2 of them. Only each one of us had 2 of them. And then no mind, make no difference how much the hog weighed. Some of them weighed anywhere about 300 pounds, 400 pounds. We'd have to pick them up and put them up there. And we would put this single tree thing in between their legs. You'd cut the leaders right here underneath them. And those leaders were strong enough in them to hold where you put that,
Like hooks?
no,
like
on
hooks?
each end of that piece of wood that you had, it would be sharp enough where you could stick it under there, and you'd stick it under both of them, and then we'd each grab a side, and we'd have a board nailed on the side of a house on an angle like this with a notch in it, and we'd pick up. Well, first we would
Dip it in that hot water.
we would dip him in
The
the
pig.
hot. Yeah,
The pig, to make
Yeah,
it easier to
we would
skin
dip the
hair
hog
off.
down in that hot water, and we'd take a regular, like a garden hoe or a scraper. We'd even put bottle caps, you know, Coke caps and stuff like that on a piece of wood, and that would make a good scraper to scrape the hair off with. We'd scrape it with them things until we could get all the hair off of both ends of the hog and the head too. Then we'd hang him up. We'd turn him around and we'd get a hold of him and put that bar in between his legs. And then we would get him up over that bar and hang him on there. And then...
And those are the back legs.
Yeah, two back
So
legs.
he's hanging upside down from the back legs
Yeah,
at this
yeah.
point.
That's when they start
And
butchering.
then we'd start butchering him. And you would come down this way, and you would have to make sure that you didn't hit the gallbladder, which the gall was on the bladder, because if you ruptured that thing, kind of like an appendix, you'd just ruin the liver and stuff. You couldn't eat it, you'd have to throw it away, it'd be so bitter. So we'd be careful to get that done. Get the inside cleaned out, and then when we get that cleaned out, we'd lay them up on a table. Then we'd start butchering. We'd take off the head the first thing, and then you'd start taking off the hams. And
That's the
the
back
side.
legs.
Well, the ham is the back leg.
Yeah.
And you would go down to the backbone and come up the backbone and come down from this shoulder into the backbone, and all this would be what they call salt pork
Or
today.
side meat. Call it
Side meat, yeah,
But
but
the reason
they-
they call
we
it
could-
salt pork, they salted it down and they cured it. That's the way they cured it, because they
Well,
put it
yeah,
in a
what we
wooden
would do with it
chest-like
then,
thing.
what we would do with it then is this: we would pull the hog down, lay him down on that board, on that table, and start cutting that off. And you'd cut down to the backbone, but you'd leave that, and you'd do both sides that way. And then you would start at the back and come up right up the backbone and take that slab of meat off, and that was the tenderloin.
Bacon.
No,
Tenderloin bacon.
tenderloin. It was these
Mm-hmm.
expensive steaks and stuff.
Thick,
Yeah.
thick chunk of meat.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
Well,
we
where was
would,
the bacon? The bacon was in there somewhere.
yeah,
That's how we get our bacon. So
Yeah, I
did
know.
you slice off for that?
but you had to wait till later to get that in there. You'd take the side meat and you'd cut them off, you know, and then you would take what you call it, some of the bacon off of there, the side meat off of there is what's called your bacon. And we would,
Make sausage. Make a lot of sausage.
yeah, we would
Yeah.
take the scraps and stuff. In cutting this up, you're gonna have lots of little pieces, you know, where you have to trim off, like the fat off and stuff like that. And we would cook all of them in that pot I was telling you about earlier. And then you could make or you could take them and you could grind them up and sausage and whatever, you know, that you
Make
wanted.
liver mush. That's how my mom made liver mush. She took the meat from the head and some of the liver and stuff like that, and they made the liver mush like
You
that.
take 2 parts of scraps meat and 1 part liver and put it together and cook it until it gets to where it's a mush like.
No,
And that's when you mash it up. You put your seasoning in it, and
then you put it through a meat grinder.
yeah, but you got to put your cornmeal in there first.
That's how you put your meat through a meat grinder, and then you add the cornmeal to the juice that you cook the liver and things in. That's when you add your cornmeal and your seasoning and cook that down a little bit. Then you add your meat into that, and that's how you
Yeah, your
make
meat
liver
has to.
mush.
You have to make sure you get your meat well done, and your liver and your scraps together, and you got it seasoned with sage and whatever you want to put in it, how much ever you
Of
want
course,
to put in
people
it.
up here don't know what liver mush is except the Southerners, and maybe even some of them don't know what it is, because the only place that I remember it being made is in and around Kings Mountain and in South Carolina and places like that down
Well,
there.
down in Carolina, down in around North Carolina where we was raised, I don't know where they make it at in South Carolina, but they have some down there.
Oh, they have plants that make it, and that
Yeah.
make it and distribute it to,
Yeah,
to
but I
the
don't know.
Carolinas.
I don't know where at they make it in South Carolina. They, cause that's not too far from where they originally make it at anyway. And I don't know why they don't make it other places, but they just don't. Because it's,
Well, you know, they make this, what they call souse meat and stuff like that. Now, you can buy that up here, but you don't buy liver mush up here. And
they used to have
people
cornmeal. They used to have up here what they call cornmeal mush. And
well, they still have that. They still have
it's
that.
made in a
but-
loaf like bread, but they slice it and
And
fry
you
it.
fry it, but it's not like, it don't have liver and
It
heart
don't
meat
have the
stuff
liver
like
and
that
stuff in it like the liver mush does.
So, that's your hog killing time, huh?
Yep, I guess we got through
We
killing the
got it,
hogs.
we got through killing the hogs and butchering them and making mush and,
Yeah,
oh,
So anything else you got to say? Did you get through all your notes, Mom?
I think I did. I think I did. Just had to show my cotton because I'm
I don't know what else to say.
proud of that I could grow that, you know.
Yeah, she's talking about the gravel roads. 12 miles away from where I lived was another little town called Cherryville, North Carolina. And
We didn't have
John
gravel
Hauser's
roads.
dad and I went up there, and we was, for some reason or other, because I think he had relatives up there. And if you wanted to go anywhere, you just started out and walk and bummed a ride or whatever you could get. You know. But anyway, we was coming back from Cherryville, and we was out, 3 or 4 miles out of town, and this man came by with a load of wood on a 2-horse wagon, and he was going along, and we was walking, and I just went behind in the wagon and hopped up backwards on the wagon. I was riding along, and John's dad was still walking. I told him, I said, "Get on, Loss, he's going." He went within about a mile of where we was going to down in Kings Mountain. Rode that wagon all the way from Cherryville all the way down to.
But you know that it's kind of funny when I look back and remembered that we didn't have paved roads where we lived. We didn't even have
No, that
paved
was a
streets.
gravel
It
road.
was all dirt, not even gravel.
And this
It was
little-
dirt. Just
I mean,
you
it
know,
had the bumps in it.
hard. It was hard surface like dirt, but we
Like
had
clay,
no
like a
paved
clay,
road.
hard.
Not in Grover, but in Kings Mountain maybe they did have, but not in the little
No, this
town
from
of
Kings,
Grover.
we went from Kings Mountain to Cherryville, and it wasn't blacktop.
Now
no.
Grover was a small town, but you know we had a weave mill there. They had a lingerie factory there where they made lingerie, and like I said, they had their cotton gin, their blacksmith shop, and
They did that up
their
where I was
cornmeal
raised too.
shop, and
Yeah.
yet it was still just a small place, but it was, you know, I guess it was just a
She's
just a
talking
farm
about the
town.
cotton gin and the corn mill there, where they bring their corn in. You know,
I guess
they
you
did
call
that.
it the grist mill, I don't know.
And they made the ice house. The ice plant was right there below my house, and it was kind of between me and it was about half a block from my house.
But that was in Kings Mountain, not
Yeah, I
Grover.
know.
Grover didn't have an ice house.
No, I know that.
They
dear.
didn't have
I'm
one.
trying to get that across there.
Oh, I thought
But
you
anyway,
was
Tom,
mixed up.
what I was trying to say before I was so rudely interrupted for about the 100th time was the fact that I worked in cotton gin and in the ice plant also a little bit. But I worked in that cotton gin, and the people would bring their cotton in there in their wagons, the 2-horse wagons. And I don't know if I told you this before, but we used to take a big suction pipe like this. My job would be to get into the wagon and suck that stuff up through that,
Suck
pipe
the cotton
in.
up through the,
and it'd
Oh,
go
I've
up
never
into
heard
the
that before.
place where they would take the seed out,
where they would gin it.
and they would go one way and the cotton would go another way. I don't know how they divided it up there. But they also baled cotton there, and they made ice come out of the ice plant in 300-pound blocks. And we had a few of the guys there that worked at the ice plant that would just back up to one of them, and they had ice tongs. When they catch hold of something with it, they would close up, and they just
They
hook
had
it
a
over
rubber
that.
sheet like over their
Yeah,
shoulders.
and they would
with
just
the
back up
ice.
to those 300-pound blocks of ice and catch them like that and walk away with them.
With their ice tongs hooked
Yeah.
into the ice.
So they have big hooks on the tongs, or
It was like a big pair of scissors that opened up, and with the hook was like on the ends of the blades, you know. And they could just clamp that into the block of ice and throw it over their shoulder, hold it over their shoulder.
Because
with
the more
them.
weight you put on it, the tighter they get. So
oh, okay.
the more weight you put on that hook, the tighter it would get on that. And we had one guy there, they called him Ice House Kibler. And he was a black guy. And I don't know how they ever started him off at it, but somebody got him to go into boxing. And he had to quit because he killed a guy. Hit him so hard, you know, with all that pressure that he had. Hit the guy so hard he broke his neck.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew him well. I was good friends with him, me and him, Ice House Kibler. And they had a lot of that stuff around there then, you know. To us, it didn't really mean much then. Because, well, we didn't think about the tomorrows, about days like today, because they'd never been thought of, I don't guess. If they had been, nobody mentioned it.
Well, you was a jack of all trades and master of none, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
All the work that you did, hard work that you did growing
Yeah,
up.
I grew up stumps out of a place building. The owner of the company there, he had land over by a lake over there, and me and some of his other help went over there and took the trees and stumps all out of it and everything, dug them out and pulled them out with horses and stuff, you know.
That was like bottom land, wasn't it? This clearing off for planting and stuff like that, or
Oh,
bottom
yeah.
land they call it.
Yeah,
Where they was clearing it off.
yeah, we did that. Yeah, Mr. W.K. Mooney came out, and I've been to his house and ate with him. He had some twin boys, and then he had, I don't know how many children him and his wife had, but he had must have 4 or 5 boys. Billy and the twins, and I know one other boy. But anyway, he ate beans and cornbread just like we did. That's what you'd think, him a millionaire. He never did carry money with him, and he went to the, like Wall Street there in New York, you know, places like that, to do business. He just write out a check. He never carried money. He wouldn't carry money because
We
And,
didn't either, did we?
no.
We
And,
didn't-
Different
we
reasons
didn't
though,
have
right?
any.
Yeah.
We didn't have any to carry.
But after I grew up and was working in the plant there, I was out there one day at the warehouse, and he come by and went in the warehouse, and me and him was talking, you know. And he was in tears talking to me about his boys. Because, well, he was no different than anybody else. He was doing what he could to keep them out of service at the time, you know.
Well, he's the one that run the mill too.
He owned the mill,
there,
that mill, and part of one or two other mills there in town. I don't know how much he owned. But we talked about his boys. Me and him did, you know. And Wally, you know him. He's been here. he got his college schooling free, I think, because he took up with those two twins. They was in the school while he helped them out and guided them around through the school there, you know, and made everything. And I think Mr. W.K. must have paid most of his schooling for him. And
So we had a pretty exciting life, didn't we?
Sounds like you kept busy, that's for sure.
yeah, well, we did. We
What other jobs did you work? Worked at
That's
the
all
ice
he-
house, worked at
that's
the
all
mill,
That's all he did. It was just a
dug
cotton
up
mill
tree
back-
stumps and
Yeah,
slaughtered
well,
pigs and
yeah, that was
you know,
his job
plowed
back
up garden
then.
spots, plowed up garden spots with a 1 and 2 horse plow.
walk behind.
Yeah. Turn plow, big turn plow, turn the dirt over.
Oh, my uncle had one of these plows that had the big wheel in the front of it, no horse or nothing. That's how he plowed up his garden, with that single plow. Had the big wheel on it, and then had a little plow thing behind it, and he'd roll that down and make up his rows and, you know, scoop out the dirt.
You push it.
Yeah, he had to push it. He had was nothing.
Didn't hitch you kids up to it and make you pull it.
Well, he probably didn't think about that.
Well, that's hard work to push a plow like
Yeah, well,
that.
yeah, it was hard work, but
Yeah,
that's
it
how
is
he
hard
made
work.
his garden.
You
That's
think
how
that's
he
hard
plowed
work,
it.
shovel up a garden.
He
Use
plowed
a
it
shovel
up.
to make a garden. Put your foot on the shovel.
But you know, that's how the farmers plowed their fields too, with
We
a
used to
horse
have
and a
little-
plow.
Our little private garden there in the back of the house, where we did the butchering and stuff too, you know, that same house. And that's the only way we had of making a garden. You get out there and use a shovel and shovel up the spot about big as them 2 rooms there.
But when you think about the farmers then, how they had to do all day long out there behind that horse and plow, plowing their fields to plant their cotton, plant their corn and stuff. And now look at all this big equipment that they have to pick their corn, and now they have cotton pickers. And of course, they don't raise a lot of cotton here anymore.
They don't raise a lot down there anymore either.
No, I mean down there. They don't raise a lot down there anymore. It comes from overseas somewhere, most of their cotton. But they had a hard time. Of course, they never had big fields either like they have today with all this machinery and stuff. Their cotton patches were, you know, were smaller. They didn't have big fields like they have some places here anymore. But that's still
Yeah, the
hard
cotton
work.
fields were about the
Those
size of your
fields
lake
were
over yonder. That was a good
Some
sized
of them
cotton
was
field.
bigger, some of them was pretty good size, and
Well, it's a
Yeah.
couple hundred acres, 200-300 acres.
I don't know if there's that much or not, because they, you know, they had to do all that plowing by hand, all of it.
Yeah. And just think how long it would take you with 1 horse and 1 plow to plow up a field like that. That's what they used to do.
It would take days
Mm-hmm.
to do that.
Hmm.
And that was rough going.
You sleep at all.
No. I was just watching the camera.
Is there anything else you can think of?
No, I can't.
I guess that's about it. We've rambled enough.
Right now,
I
I don't
reckon.
think I know.
Alright. We got about an hour of tape here.
Uh-oh.
Do what?
So we got about an hour's worth of tape, so
Well, you can save it.